Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. We have a lot of new information to go through in the Bryan Kohberger case today. Oh my goodness. We are going to be talking about proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak. Was he using this to surveil or stalk the victims? We're going to talk about the defense motion regarding the alternative perpetrator, the real reason Ann Taylor wanted to seal this motion, the defense attempt to delay the trial. We have some new information, and I think it's going to give us an answer as to whether the trial is going to be delayed or not. And then the penalty, and then we're going to talk about Dylan and was she really on Yik Yak that morning. And we're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that Bryan Kohberger made that we all missed in just a moment. So please stay with me. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects and share with you how to do the same thing. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, it's free and it helps me out a lot. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment, and tell me what number your like is, and come on in and tell me where you are from. You can tell me what country, you can tell me what state, you can tell me what city, whatever you want to tell me. Maybe you just want to tell me a region or a continent. That's fine too. Come on in, tell me where you're from. And if you're watching this, come on up and talk to me. So Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty, but I'm not a judge. You're not a judge. We're not jury members. So we are going to be talking about this case in terms of Bryan Kohberger because he is the one who's been indicted and whose trial is coming up. And it's on his behalf that all of these motions and affidavits and evidence are coming in. So let's talk about, we're going to start off with the delay. And then we're going to discuss what really is going on in regards to the defense motion regarding the alternative perpetrator. What is the real reason that Ann Taylor wanted to seal this motion? We're going to talk about proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak to stalk victims. And we're going to talk about the defense attempt to delay the trial, why I believe, and I'm going to show you why, I don't think this worked. We don't have the motion from the judge yet, but I have some information that I think will give us some answers. You guys know I love to use local reporters. The penalty phase witnesses, we might get to do that. Hopefully we can get through everything. And then Dylan, we're going to talk about Dylan Mortensen. Why was she on Yik Yak that morning, the morning of the crimes? We're going to talk about all of that. So let's start with the delay. All right, so let me pull this up. I don't think there's going to be a delay, and I want to show you why. Okay, you guys know I love to use local media, and this is the KPVI Channel 6, because they always have contacts, sources in town, more so than an out-of-town reporter would have. They have relationships with law enforcement and with people in the court. So get this, they are reporting out that, and they're an affiliate with NBC News, they are reporting out the judge has ordered the jury questionnaires begin in the Bryan Kohberger trial. So I don't think there's going to be a delay. It says the Ada County District Court is summoning hundreds of thousands of people to the court to fill out questionnaires. This will happen in the weeks before voir dire. So the fact that the summons are going out on time and are not being held gives us, in my opinion, a pretty strong hint of how the judge is leaning. I think he's going to keep this trial on the tracks. If there is a delay, maybe he's going to give her an extra week or something nominal, but I would be shocked if she even got that. I think that the fact that he's already sending out summons to hundreds of thousands of people to come to the courthouse to fill out questionnaires tells me that he's going to be planning to start this. And we know jury selection begins July 30th, and it's almost June, you guys. So in a little over a month. So this will happen in the weeks before voir dire. The questionnaire will then be copied and sent to the defense, prosecution, and the judge. The voir dire is expected to start August 4th, followed by opening statements, which are likely to begin on August the 11th. So this does not sound like there is going to be a delay in this trial, at least not from local journalists. And you guys know I love to source local outlets because they sometimes have information that the rest of us do not have. So let's continue on because we have a lot of stuff to unpack here. August the 20th. Okay. So we're going to talk about what's really going on in terms of the alternative perpetrator. What's the real reason that Ann Taylor wanted this motion field? We're going to do that right now. And then we're going to talk about proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak. Was he using this to stalk the victims? The defense attempt to delay the trial motion, why I think it didn't work. The penalty phase witnesses, should they be allowed to sit in for the trial? And Dylan, why was she on Yik Yak that morning? In just a moment, so please stay with me. So let's talk about the alternative suspect. Bryan Kohberger's alleged evidence pointing to an alternative suspect was turned in on time by Ann Taylor, and it was immediately sealed at her request. So the judge didn't seal this of his own accord. He didn't seal this because the prosecution asked him to. He sealed this because Ann Taylor asked him to seal it. So this is, for somebody who didn't want things to be super secret, I think it's interesting that the alternative perpetrator is being kept secret. So what do I think this means? To be clear, this fact that this was sealed by the defense, I think is not a good sign for the alternative perpetrator. Let me know if you have a different feeling. Let me pull this up, because I just don't think this is a good sign. I have so many packages to go with you guys through information. Okay, so Alan Dershowitz talked to Fox News, and I couldn't pull that one up for you because I would have need to. You have to have a subscription, so I didn't want to get in trouble. So I used the source of William Kennedy, who wrote this, but it was sourced from Fox News. Now, Alan Dershowitz, and you'll remember him. He was an attorney in the O.J. Simpson's defense team. He was a member of the Dream Team. And even if you weren't old enough to see that trial, you certainly would have seen maybe a documentary or a movie about it. It was probably the trial that kicked off the whole true crime genre. And in May of 2025, so this month, Alan Dershowitz described the Bryan Kohberger case as reminiscent of O.J. Simpson, highlighting similarities in defense strategies and in the handling of DNA evidence. Now, he served as an appellate advisor on the O.J. Simpson defense team, and he saw notable parallels between the two cases. He said in both cases, DNA plays a pivotal role. At Bryan Kohberger's defense team is expecting to challenge the integrity of this evidence. Now, it doesn't sound like they're planning to try to dispute whether the DNA belongs to Bryan Kohberger. What it seems like Ann Taylor is going to try to do is say that somebody else planted the DNA to frame him. So if you think Bryan Kohberger, that someone planted the evidence to frame Bryan Kohberger, put a 1 in the chat. If you think that Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on the knife sheath, snap, because it's his, put a 2 in the chat. Let's just see where we're at on that. So Dershowitz emphasized that at the O.J. Simpson trial, that as in the O.J. Simpson trial, the defense might argue that the DNA evidence was mishandled or contaminated. And I think that's what she's going to try to do. Poke holes, just like she's going to try to use Ray to poke holes in the cell phone pings and possibly geofencing, in my opinion. In the O.J. Simpson case, the defense was successful, right? They argued that the DNA evidence was compromised, leading to his acquittal. Now, Alan Dershowitz suggests that BK's defense might adopt a similar approach in an effort to undermine the prosecution's case. Furthermore, the Simpson and Kohberger cases have been subject to intense media scrutiny. And I do think this is going to be the biggest trial since the O.J. Simpson trial. So let me take, I'm going to keep going because we have so much stuff to get through. I want to get through everything. And we're going to talk about Yik Yak in just a second. But I also wanted to consider the Casey Anthony trial when she was accused of doing away with her daughter, Kaylee. Now, the defense team successfully accused her father as an alternative suspect. Now, the defense team on the Casey Anthony trial was led by Jose Baez, and he claimed that Kaylee accidentally drowned in their family's swimming pool and that George, Casey's father, helped Casey cover up the accidental drowning and by simply disposing of Kaylee. Now, this was kind of far-fetched in my opinion, but the jury bought it. Jose Baez claimed that he was that it was George was the one that disposed of Kaylee, and Casey Anthony was found not guilty. She was found not guilty. The only thing she was found guilty of was lying to law enforcement. So, will there be an alternative suspect? I don't think there's a viable alternative suspect, in my opinion. I think, Ann Taylor, I think it is. You guys said you thought it was smoke and mirrors on the last live stream. I think you guys are right. I think it is just smoke and mirrors. That's why she, rushed in to have it sealed. If she really had a viable alternative suspect that she thought was going to exonerate Bryan Kohberger, she would be, holding a parade and like holding that out in front of her. And she would be making a bunch of noise about it in every single motion. She couldn't hold the parade because of the gag order. I'm being facetious, but she would be, attaching that to the motion. She wouldn't want it to be sealed. That's for darn sure. So I think that the fact that she wanted this sealed tells me that she knows the judge is probably not going to accept whatever evidence she has on this. So let's see where you guys are at with the poll. I'm looking for ones and twos. Hello, everybody. And Josh, thank you so much for modding today. Barbara, thank you. Thank you for modding today. Dabs. Hi, Maria. So Chris says 2. Enjaz, welcoming. And this is our other head mod, along with Enjaz. This is Brother Mike. He put a 2. Barbara put a 2. Sunflower put a 2. Dion's put a 2. And Kara says that OJ was not smart, but he was rich and famous. Huge difference. Yeah, he was. And he had a reputation before this. He was also charismatic and likable, right? Leave no trace 2. And Justice 2. So from Marianne and Donna. 2 from Tammy. Adriana says this isn't easy. Barbara put a 2. Thank you to all of our mods today for welcoming all the new members. Brother Mike saying, mods, please help in the chat. Welcome others, watch for trolls, and remind everybody to hit the thumbs up button. Veronica put a 2. Adriana put a 2. Regina put a 2. Shelly really feels passionate about it. She put multiple 2s. Hey, Kathleen. Hi, Sunflower. And M's Nails, I hope I said that right, put a 2. Haiku said, is that because there's a glove? No, I mean, that's interesting. But the glove that was found at the 1122 King Road home by Chris McDonough, who is a retired police officer. He has a YouTube channel here on this platform. And it was found nearly a month after the crimes are committed. So I don't really think the glove is relevant. I think Ann Taylor will, definitely put it before the jury. She's going to do a good job for Bryan. But I don't think it's, going to mean anything because it could have been dropped by anybody, right? Garbage man, somebody coming to pay their respects, anybody. 2 truth seekers, in my opinion. Christian says, with no racial component, hate, hence no nullification problem. Hi, Florence. All right, Kami says she's the number 55, thumbs up. Thank you, Kami. And Kara says, I'm going to stay innocent until proven guilty. This case will test out our legal system to see if they can contain a situation that could quickly spiral out of control. Thank you for sharing that. And Dion said, there is a mountain of circumstantial evidence. It points to nobody but Bryan Kohberger. Christian thinks OJ was a messed up hombre with anger issues, but Kohberger is truly sick. All right, so let's continue on because we have a lot of stuff to unpack. And I want to get through everything. We're going to talk about Yik Yak, and I'm going to discuss proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak, and was he using this to stalk their victims? The defense attempts to delay the trial motion, and we talked about this at the top of the show. I don't think this worked because the judge has already sent out subpoenas for potential jurors to fill out the juror questionnaire. So I think that's a really good sign that lots of those, around 100,000 of those went out in Ada County. So in my opinion, if he was planning to delay the trial by more than a week or more, he would not have sent out the subpoena. So either A, there is not going to be a delay, or if there is a delay, it's going to be very, very tiny, like maybe a week. Because let's face it, if the prosecution is ready and they've been ready, then the defense could have gotten ready. And we're going to talk about Dylan, why she was really on Yik Yak, and the 5 biggest mistakes we all missed in just a moment. So please stay with me. So Ann Taylor also previously revealed the defense plans to claim that Bryan Kohberger was his frame by somebody planting his DNA. It doesn't sound like you guys are buying that. And 2 people must have committed the crime using 2 different weapons. Now, to me, he had 2 hands. So, the judge said gave the defense the deadline, and she did meet that. But we still don't have the alibi for Bryan Kohberger. Here we are, and we still don't have an alibi. And then the alternative suspect is so, in my opinion, ridiculous. She wanted it sealed. Not the prosecution wanted it sealed, not the judge wanted it sealed. Ann Taylor wanted it sealed. And in my opinion, it's because she doesn't think this dog is going to hunt. It's just smoke and mirrors. So if she could make it look like it's sealed and it's all super secret, all she needs is 1 juror. And we've seen people, they let off O.J. Simpson. He got off. A lot of people feel like he did it. Casey Anthony got off, and a lot of people feel like she did it. So we'll see what happens on this trial. So let's talk about what the judge is going to do to protect Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial. And then we're going to discuss proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak. Was he using this to stalk victims in just a moment? So please stay with me. So the Dateline leak and the defense delay request, how the judge is mitigating this so far is that he added alternative jurors. So instead of seating 4 alternative jurors, he is now seating 6. And also, he has probably added questions to the voir dire process. He also ordered an investigation into the leak. It sounds like he's actively finding out who leaked this information, and he wants to hold this person accountable. There have been lots of fingers pointed. The people think the defense did it. People think the prosecution did it. Some people think law enforcement did it. We don't know who did it. But we, hopefully we'll find out in the next week or so. Let's talk about the jury questions, and then I want to talk about Yik Yak. So in another newly released court order, let's talk about Yik Yak first. Let's look at the proof that Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak. So let me pull that up. As you guys know, I like to get started right away. All right, let me grab this. Okay. So Bryan Kohberger was using Yik Yak. And for those of you that are like, what is Yik Yak? It's an app that's centered around users anonymously connecting with everyone within 5 miles. It's really popular on college campuses. Now, according to Vice, and let me show you this really quick, and then we're going to get into the court docs. According to Vice, an anonymous message board app, Yik Yak is designed in a way that it is possible to get a precise location of a user's point and to see users' unique IDs, potentially allowing someone to dox and stalk users. So was Bryan Kohberger using Yik Yak to stalk victims? Now, we cannot use the word in court. People are going to come flood into the comment section to tell me that the prosecution said that there was not stalking in this case. I agree. If you look at the legal definition of stalking, it doesn't apply. In Idaho, for it to be considered stalking, it has to be, the person has to feel threatened in some way or afraid. And in this case, I don't think these victims knew he existed. But we're not in a courtroom, and I don't have to do a legal definition. So for our purposes, if you want to use the word surveilled, whatever word you want to use, he was using it to surveil the victims. In an anonymous social media network, this is primarily popular on college campuses. It was launched in 2013. Now it got shut down in 2017. I was accused of being a platform to harass and cyber and bully students, even to post threats. So these allegations have followed the app since the beginning. In 2014, the company blocked access to middle school and high school students because of reports of threats and bullying on the thing. So the app came back in. This says last year, but this article is from 2022. So it was definitely available. That's why I wanted to show you the court doc really quick. And we're going to go through those together, just showing you proof that Bryan Kohberger did have this app. So these allegations, have been around, and it sounds like they took the app down and revamped it, but it has a so-called community guardrails to ensure that everybody feels welcome and safe. But were the victims safe on this platform? In April, David Tether, now he's a computer science student, analyzed the kind of data YikYak exposes by intercepting the data sent and received in his YikYak app using a free and open source called MIT-M proxy, and by writing code that pretended to be the YikYak app to extract information from it. Remember, Bryan Kohberger applied for a job with the Pullman Police Department to teach technology to law enforcement. So this would not have been very hard for him, because what you can do is, he realized that, and he proved that you can use YikYak to send precise GPS coordinates of every post to his app, as well as the user's unique identification. So this ID number that's unique to every user, for example, which would have allowed him to track users' posts by looking at where they posted over time, opening up the possibility to because it's supposed to be anonymous, right? To make it so that it's not anonymous, and stalk users. So you can use this app to stalk other people, or at least you could in 2022. He also demonstrated a flaw in a video call to the motherboard showing a post in the area and its GPS coordinates. So combining these two pieces of information, the post coordinates, it's possible to make what would be an anonymous user not anonymous, or de-anonymize. So I just wanted to show you that, and then I want to show you proof that Bryan Kohberger was using this app. And I believe he was using this app to stalk victims. This is why law enforcement wanted it. Okay, so this is just, I wanted to show you the receipts. We're going to go through a couple of these. That's the warrant for Yahoo. This is the warrant for Yik Yak. So let's go through this. So this matter came before the court on February 10th of 2023 on the court's motion to seal or redact pursuant to ICAR 32. The hearing was held via Zoom. William B. Thompson, that's the head prosecutor, and Ashley Jennings, who's also a member of the prosecution team, appeared on behalf of the state, and Ann Taylor appeared on behalf of Bryan Kohberger. The court reviewed the records, considered the arguments presented, weighed the interest in public privacy and public disclosure, and announced its finding of facts on the record. Therefore, pursuant to ICAR 32I2A and E and IC 74-1241B, the court finds it's necessary to seal in part and redact the record related to the search warrant for the following reasons. 1, the documents contain highly intimate facts or statements, the publication of which would be highly objectionable to a reasonable person. And 2, it's necessary to preserve the right to a fair trial. So highly intimate facts and statements, and this is Bryan Kohberger's Yik Yak. After due consideration and with good cause appearing, it is hereby ordered that the record herein shall be disclosed except for the following. The affidavit in support of the search warrant is sealed. The search warrant and receipt and inventory be redacted. This order will remain in effect until further court order. So that was sealed on March 7th of 2023. And then we have this document based on the motion to seal the related documents. So this is the motion to seal it, signed by Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall. So she agrees to seal it. And then we have this document from the prosecution. Again, it's related to Yik Yak and Bryan Kohberger. The state of Idaho, by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney, respectfully moves the court pursuant to Idaho Court Administrative Rule 32G1 and Idaho Code 74-124 for an order sealing search warrant and related documents, including the affidavit for the search warrant, including any exhibits, the search warrant, return of search warrant, the inventory of items seized, and the order filed herein, because release or disclosure would 1. Interfere with enforcement proceedings, 2. Deprive a person of a right to a fair trial or impartial adjudication, in this case that's Bryan Kohberger, 3. Constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, 4. Disclose the identity of a confidential source and or disclose investigative techniques and procedures. So I think that's really, really interesting. Let's keep going because there's more. So the state sought a protection through this entity of case. They respectfully praise that the court seal from public disclosure the affidavit for the search warrant, the return of the search warrant, and order herein under the provisions of Idaho Court Administrative Rule. And I'm not going to name all the rules again because we already went through them, but I think it's interesting. So there's a lot of stuff we still don't know in this case. And Yik Yak is a big one. And you know who else was using Yik Yak was Dylan. So were the victims also on Yik Yak, and was Bryan Kohberger using this to stalk or surveil, or whatever word you want to use, the victims? So this is from the Lawrence Mowry, the police officer. And he has a redacted. He said, the officer by whom this warrant was executed do certify the appended inventory contains a true and detailed account of all property taken by me or other officers pursuant to this warrant. So this is, again, related to the Yik Yak warrant. And property has been duly returned before the court at 11 o'clock a.m. on the 2nd day of February of 2023. So he says that I'm an employee of the Moscow Police Department in the official position of detective. He said affidavit has been a trained and qualified peace office for 12 years. He currently worked day shift, at least at the time. On January 25th of 2023, he says, I obtained a search warrant for Yik Yak. The warrant was served on January 26th, 2023 via Yik Yak law enforcement portal. On January 27th of 2023, I received an email containing data pursuant to the warrant. An inventory was prepared for all the items received. A copy of the inventory receipt was mailed to, and the information was placed into evidence at the Moscow Police Department. And he signs it with his name. Let's keep going. So for people who said there's no connections, I think we are going to see connections. All right. So here is another matter for the search warrant for Yik Yak. In the above, let me see what the date is on this one. It'll be signed at the bottom. Oop. All right. So whatever they received, we don't get to see it. It's redacted. So in the above entitled matter, this court having heretofore issued a search warrant, and said search warrant has been served according to the law, and return of warrant having been duly made as directed in said search warrant to this court, and a written inventory of the property found and seized having been duly made and taken before the undersigned magistrate or judge filed herein. Now, therefore, It is hereby ordered that the peace officer shall cause to be delivered the property described in said inventory to the Moscow Police Department or other such law enforcement agencies as may be appropriate for the purpose of preserving said property for use as evidence until further court order of the competent jurisdiction. And then it's ordered that persons or laboratory for the purpose of conducting or obtaining tests or analysis. So it's in this case, because it's an app, I would think it would be analysis. Here's the search warrant signed by the judge for Yik Yak. So I think this is really, really important. I think that we are going to find out that not only was Dylan on Yik Yak, but I think we're going to find out that the reason she was on Yik Yak. So let's talk about Dylan for a second, because this app could easily be used to track people. I think that somebody who was a savvy technology-wise, that was, able to get a job application into the Pullman Police Department and interview for a job to teach them technology to law enforcement, tells me that he was really good with technology. And we're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that Bryan Kohberger made in just a moment. So please stay with me. But Dylan was on the app also on the morning of the crime. So I don't think she was the only roommate that lived in the house. I think that we're going to find that she was on the app. She accessed it between 8:05 a.m. and 11:57 a.m. Her cell phone accessed Instagram, Indeed, Snapchat, Yik Yak, and TikTok, the filing alleges. Now, is this because she was reaching out to Kaylee and Maddie on Yik Yak and Instagram trying to get a response? And if Dylan is on Yik Yak, does this mean that Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana and Bethany were all on Yik Yak also? So was Bryan Kohberger able to use this Yik Yak app to surveil, stalk, whatever word you want to use? Legally, we can't call it stalking, because in Idaho, for the stalking statute to apply legally, the victim has to feel threatened in some way. And in this case, I don't think these victims even knew he existed. But I do think he was using the GPS on the Yik Yak, and that he was able to track people and interact with people, which is why we have all of these warrants of them. And this was sent to a lab to be analyzed. So was this sent to an FBI lab to be analyzed? So exposing the precise location and unique user IDs of anonymous users, this would make it really easy to dox and stalk them. This is according to David Tether. He's a privacy research who reviewed and reproduced research for Motherboard. Of course, we do know that, that legally we can't call it stalking, but, so if you think that Bryan Kohberger was using the Yik Yak to surveil victims, put a 1 in the chat. If you think Bryan Kohberger was not using Yik Yak to surveil victims, put a 2 in the chat. Let's see where we are. And I wanted to show you guys this too. This is a monkey suit. I've been talking. Some of you guys want to know what it was. This is a coverall. I believe this is what Bethany saw. She saw a perpetrator taking something off and dropping it into a bag. And I believe that we're going to find out that this was that coverall. We also know that he wore a balaclava style mask. Dylan drew this. And we also know that this is what it would look like to Dexter out your car. I think he, did go offline, and I think it, would be very easy for somebody to do something like this and cover the seats in plastic. And I think that would be very, very easy. It would help cut down on DNA transfer. That and wearing that coverall would make it really easy to cut down on DNA transfer. Does that mean there was no DNA? We don't know yet, but, hopefully we'll find out more soon. So let's talk about, let's see where you guys are at on the poll. I see a couple of ones. I see almost only ones. Okay, so I don't see. Oh, wow. I don't see any twos. So it sounds like you guys do believe that he was stalking the victims. We'll go through it. Patty says, you would think if the glove was there at the time of the crimes, it would have been seen before. Right, exactly. And they took pictures too. So I think law enforcement's going to be able to say pretty quickly that they, either the glove was not there when they arrived on the scene, because they took pictures all too. Manic Siren put in a 1. Vicky says 1. So you're putting in a 1 if you think that there was stalking. There was stalking, that he was using Yik Yak to surveil, stalking, whatever word you want to use. And a 2 if you think that he was not. 1, that's just all a big coincidence. Marianne thinks it's a 1. Leave no trace put a 1. Faraday says a 1. Jackie put 1. Maureen says 1. So a lot of 1s here. Hey, Donna, I'm glad you're here. Chris Ann's here. Chris Ann put a 1. Barbara says 1. 1. Wicked put 1. Christy put 1. Wow, a lot of 1s from Veronica, Katie, and Dabs. Space Junkie says 1. Naomi says 1. Per Anderson says 1. Love you too, Afro or Troll put a 1. Donna put a 1. Brother Mike said 1. Eileen says highly likely and put a 1. Shelly put multiple 1s. 1. Diane said 1. Barbara, lots of 1s from Barbara. Enja says 1. Tanya says 1. Victoria says 1. Regina said 1. Tammy says 1 all day long and night especially. Brother Mike says lots of 1s. Haiku said, do you have to be a friend to follow someone and track them on Yik Yak? No. And it's anonymous too. No, and you're not supposed to be anonymous on there, but they've had, problems. Shannon said that Kohberger is a creeper. He enjoys being unknown until he doesn't. Yeah, I agree. The fact that he was willing to surveil his own colleague from WSU tells me that he would totally be willing to surveil people using Yik Yak. And I think that's why it's sealed. So for people who say, have said multiple times he doesn't have connections to the victims, he does have connections to the victims. He's connected to the victims from the DNA that was left on the knife sheath underneath and to the side of Maddie, right? And he's connected to the victims from this Yik Yak. I believe he was following Kaylee and Maddie on Instagram, and I showed you guys proof of that. If you didn't want to just take journalistic sourcing on that, I showed you Shadow Dragon's source and the fact that they were able to prove that he was following them on Instagram. So there were connections between Bryan Kohberger and the victims, and then we found out from Dateline that there were pictures of their friends on his phone. Now we've heard reports that he had pictures of the actual victims on his phones, but we haven't seen any confirmation of that yet. So hopefully we'll learn more about that. But let's continue on because we have a lot of stuff to unpack. I want to talk about the top 5 mistakes that Bryan Kohberger made committing these crimes in just a moment. So please stay with me. I want to welcome Destiny Armstrong as a brand new Reporter Room channel member. Welcome. I love Dan Forever. It looks like you rejoined. Thank you so much. And Jazz gifted a Reporter Room membership. Wow. If you got that, please make sure you say thank you. And thank you so much, and Jazz. That is so nice of you. That's one of the benefits of coming up to talk to me. You could get a free membership. And guess what? We're having a membership Q&A today after we do the Jack and Lily Sullivan case. Shannon says, gave a $5 super thanks. Thank you so much, Shannon. I'll be putting that toward editing equipment. She said, wait until they tie him to Pappa Rogers. Wish we had insight there. I do too. I mean, I just think that there's some things where we're just going to be taking, really educated guesses on, do I think he's Pappa Roger? I think it's more likely than not that he is. Do I think that animal hair in his apartment is going to tie back to Murphy the dog or Buddy the dog? He doesn't have a pet. So, I think it's very possible that there was some transfer. Welcome Patty Dobbins as a brand new Reporter Room member. And thank you, Brother Mike, for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. I will be putting that toward editing equipment. I really appreciate it. That is really nice of you. So Donna says, congratulations to the Reporter Room new members. Yes, and welcome to the family. We're going to be watching this trial together. Jewel says, does anyone know if Maddie went to Washington University for a week before she went to University of Idaho? Still trying to find the report that says she was at Washington. I have heard rumors of it, but I have not been able to confirm it. So I not like even like any sourcing to talk about, to to confirm that. I wish I had something more for you on that, and I have looked. So either it's not true or it's just not out publicly yet. All right, so let's talk about the 5. But before we say, remember, who was hanging out in the University of Idaho Student Union, who was seen by multiple female students, creeping them out by staring. And I believe that the staring was intentional. I think that the staring was designed to make them uncomfortable. I think that's why he did it. Just like students at WSU, female students, said that they were having to walk around him. He was following them out to their car and creeping them out. I think this was intentional. And the fact that he was in the student union, in the cafeteria, sipping water, so he's not there for the food, making females uncomfortable, he was there. He was there. That's another connection, in my opinion, to the victims. He didn't have any business to be at University of Idaho. All right, so let's talk about the 5 biggest mistakes Bryan Kohberger made committing these crimes. I think he thought he was smart, but he wasn't that smart. So he was smart, but not that smart. Okay, so he drove his own vehicle, which was lacking a front license plate in an area known to have cameras. Now, I think he meandered around in an effort to avoid cameras and also to make it look like he was out stargazing, because that was going to be his alibi. And he took pictures of the sky, so it would definitely look like he's stargazing. The problem that he had is that he was picked up on security cameras, and the fact that he was circling the neighborhood 5 times and then circling the house itself another 3 times just, makes him look more guilty. And the fact that he's stargazing, here we are a month out from the trial, a little over a month, and we don't have this guy hasn't provided an alibi yet. Like, how many chances does he get to provide an alibi? Because here we are, and we still have no alibi. So I think he went, stargazing on a night that had ice fog and cloud coverage, as I showed you in the last live stream. Number 2, he drove his own Hyundai Elantra to the scene. And I think the reason that that he felt comfortable doing that was he thought he was smarter than law enforcement, because he was going to change out his license plate. And he did do that. He changed his Pennsylvania tags over to a Washington state tag. So he had a front license plate and a back license plate just 5 days after the crimes were committed. Next, Bryan Kohberger disabled his phone in the minutes before, during, and after these crimes were committed. Again, I think he thought he was so smart that, he was sliding around in his Hyundai Elantra trying to avoid cameras. Ann Taylor tried to file a motion to suppress the evidence of 12 hours of video footage. And again, if this showed a green car, you guys, she would not have filed a motion to suppress this evidence. So for the people that come in to tell me the car was green, first of all, that Hyundai Elantra, Regina, one of our channel members, pointed out that that car doesn't even come in that color. I know people are they're going to say, well, he painted the car that color. Somebody wrapped it. There's 12 hours of raw video footage. If there was a green Hyundai Elantra, Ann Taylor would not be filing a motion to suppress it. She didn't want the jury to see it. Next, number 4, Bryan Kohberger left his knife sheath with his DNA. Now, there's been a lot of questions. Did he do this on purpose? Did he do this by accident? I believe he did wipe the knife sheath prior to going out to committing the crimes, allegedly. He's innocent until proven guilty, but his DNA is on this sheath because he missed the snap. And this particular knife sheath has reviews that it was known that the snap sticks. So it could have been that he was just having trouble getting that snap undone and got a little bit caught into a little bit of a corner, enough where law enforcement was able to get it. Now, I don't know if he left the knife sheath behind on purpose as a calling card. K-Bar, Bryan Kohberger, BK, the K-Bar killer. I don't know if he dropped it because he wasn't expecting Kaylee to be in the same room with Maddie. But either way, that knife sheath is the beginning of his downfall, in my opinion. Number 5, Bryan Kohberger revisited the 1122 King Road home just after 9 a.m. on the morning of November 13th of 2022. Why was he there? There would be no reason for him to be there in the night, up stargazing, going home, calling his dad, and then going back to the crime scene unless he realized he didn't have the knife sheath. And I believe this may be how that van's shoe print was left. I believe that he may have, we've heard reports that the front door was open. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it was left open, maybe he just ran in really quick to try to see if he could find it, because that knife sheath was his downfall. And revisiting the crime scene and having his car again on surveillance, and then they're going to, now it's in broad daylight on surveillance, and his phone's pinging. He didn't turn his phone off. And I think the fact that he turned the phone off right at the times of the crimes makes him look more guilty. It makes him look more likely that, because why would you turn off your cell phone when it had a 90% plus charge on it? You wouldn't, right? So Bryan Kohberger went back to the crime scene because he was either desperate or he was just plain careless. He might have been desperate to get that knife sheath back, and that may have been when that van's shoe print was left. But he might have also just gone there to looky-loo and to relive the crimes. I've always said I thought there might be an essay component to this, and he might have been doing that and then returned to his house for his thumbs up photo, which was taken after he got back. He showered, I probably again, I'm assuming, and took a thumbs up selfie. I agree with Steve Gonzalez. He believes that this is a trophy, that this was a trophy for Bryan Kohberger to take that thumbs up photo. It was a thumbs up for himself, that he was proud of himself for what he did. And I think that he believes that he was smarter than everyone else in the room. So what makes Bryan Kohberger a formidable threat is the fact but also his downfall is that he did believe that he was smarter than law enforcement. And we still see him, sitting in court. He has never said to us, you guys, that he's not guilty. The judge offered him to enter a plea and he stood silent. So in my opinion, he wants to have it both ways. He wants the jury to find him not guilty, but he wants to be able to take credit for the crimes that he committed against Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana. In my opinion, let me know if you have a different one. So now we see Bryan Kohberger sitting in court with his chair in the lowest position, wearing light colored shirts instead of the suit, which, had the padded shoulders. And I think this is an effort on Ann Taylor's part to make him look smaller. Let me see if I have a picture of him with the suit on. And also look younger, because, there's the suit. You can see that a suit like this is going to have some padding in the shoulders. This is going to, help you hold the shape of the suit. So I think that, now she's got him in light colored shirts. She tried one without a tie, another without a tie. I have no doubt she's hired a jury consultant and that she's getting feedback on what he should wear, and definitely not a suit, because that makes him look bigger. He's already 6 feet tall. And then a lot of you guys pointed out how absolutely ridiculous he looked at the last hearing. His seat was lower than the female attorney sitting next to him and lower than Ann Taylor's seat. You could clearly see the back of the seat was lower. He was still slightly taller than her, but next, is Ann Taylor going to sit him on the floor, put on a bib, and stick a pacifier in his mouth? I don't know what else she can do to try to make him look, as harmless as possible. But they did this with Casey Anthony. Jose Baez lowered her seat. He put her in pastel colors. He pulled her hair back. It's an effort to manipulate the jury and to manipulate us. And all Ann Taylor needs is one juror. So I think Bryan Kohberger stood silent intentionally. I don't think this was just like he didn't know better. I think, he was a PhD student in criminology. He knew the system very well. He knows the way cases are investigated. He understands how court works. I think he stood silent because he wanted to claim these crimes. against Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana. He never has said he didn't do it. He has never said, I'm innocent. I've never heard him say that. And I think he wanted to be a legend in his own mind. And, and for some people, they confuse infamous with famous. And, we talked last week about he, has a pen pal in prison that's writing him letters. We saw, see this in the Chris Watts case too, where these women write and send pictures and letters and want to correspond because they mix up infamous with famous. And I think he's enjoying his moment in the sun. Why not file for delay after delay after delay? He doesn't want to face capital punishment. We know that because Ann Taylor has moved heaven and earth to try to get that taken off the table. He was perfectly willing, allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty, but if he did this, he was perfectly willing to dish it out to Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana with no regard for them, with no regard for their lives, all the weddings that will never happen, the children and grandchildren that will never be, the careers that will never happen. So, but he doesn't want to face capital punishment himself, does he? And I think he and Ann Taylor and the defense team are perfectly willing to stall and delay justice because they know with every passing day, another witness could pass away and memories could fade. So Bryan Kohberger benefits by continuing to sit in his cell and delay the trial. And I think Ann Taylor wants to win. I think this is a career-making case for her. And she, it's a book deal. Documentaries made about her. I think she, wants to win. And so she's, this is her golden ticket. And she has successfully delayed the trial multiple times. She also successfully moved the venue from Latah County to Ada County. And now she's been trying more than 13, I think 14 times now, trying to remove the penalty of capital punishment and delay the trial again. Now, I don't think the judge is going to delay this. And as I shared with you at the top of the show, I don't think he's going to delay this because we know from the local media that guess what? The subpoenas have gone out to the jurors. This is why I love local journalists. They, they have in scoops a little bit ahead of the mainstream media. So the subpoenas have gone out to the jurors. And so I don't think the judge, and this is going to be the jury questionnaires, I don't think that he would be sending those out. Reportedly, according to the news outlet, which is a subsidiary of NBC News, they sent out around 100,000 jury questionnaires. So I think, this judge, if he is going to offer a delay, it's going to be very small, like maybe a week. But I don't even know if she's going to get that. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't think he's going to let this train come off the tracks. I think he's going to keep this train on the tracks, and he's going to keep this trial for this summer. So I think that Bryan Kohberger's thought he was smarter than law enforcement. I think he's an arrogant person who thought he was equipped to outmaneuver and outsmart the FBI, the Idaho State Police, the Pullman Police Department, the Moscow Police Department, and the WSU Campus Police, and all of the CSI lab technicians. And I think he believed that he could commit red rum, watching my words here, without facing any consequences. And I think he still is sitting in that chair thinking that he's going to outsmart the prosecution, and maybe they will. That he thinks he's going to win, which is why he doesn't want to take a plea. And I believe that Bryan Kohberger is the type of guy that has never really had to face any consequences for his behaviors. He was removed from high school classes and not suspended or held in detention, actually removed from his high school classes and had to finish studying class online because of his behavior toward females. He was removed from his teaching position at WSU, his teaching assistant position, for grading female students differently than males and getting into an altercation with his professor. But I want to know, when he was removed from high school program for his problem with females, did his parents get him into counseling at that point? Because Mary Ann, his mom, is reportedly a special needs teacher. And, if she had thought at that time that Bryan Kohberger was autistic, Wouldn't she have had him tested then? Why was it he was not tested until after he was sitting in jail for doing away with 4 innocent young people who were in their homes, in their own bedrooms, minding their own business? I just wonder if he was diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder as a child, and if Marianne and Michael just really were a little bit in denial about what was going on with Bryan Kohberger. I'm not saying they knew, he was going to do something like this, but I think it's concerning. I think it's concerning. Let me check in with chat and see what you guys are thinking on this. Come on up and talk to me, you guys, if you're watching. Vicky says the judge definitely wants to be done by Christmas at the latest, but probably by Thanksgiving. Yeah. It's supposed to be done 3 months after we start. We're supposed to start August 11th. So that's September, October, November. So you're right, before Thanksgiving. Great point. Kathleen says BK thinks he's going to beat this, in my opinion. Yeah, I wonder that too. And I'm wondering if his mother thinks the same thing. If she thinks also that her son is going to beat this. I just wonder if this man has ever had to face consequences. He harassed servers. Imagine you're working as a server in a restaurant. How many of you guys have worked in a server in a restaurant while you're trying to put yourself through school? I did. So you're working as a server and you have a customer who's really harassing you every time he comes in, and you're like just dreading having to wait on this person. And so, his harassment was so major that they had a card on file for him, according to the owners of the 7 Sirens in Pennsylvania, to watch out for him. That's how bad it was. That's like next level harassment. The young woman at the University of Idaho said that he was staring at them to the point where they had to leave their own cafeteria and go outside to move away from him. He was creeping them out so badly. And then we have the WSU students who tried to sound the alarm and were told, oh no, you have to collect more data. You need to give us when and who witnessed it. You have to jump through all these hoops before we investigate anything. No consequences. Just always given the benefit of the doubt every single time. And it just makes me wonder if he would have had his feet held to the fire a couple of times, maybe this wouldn't have happened. What do you guys think? Kathleen says he thinks he's going to beat it. I think you're right, Kathleen. I think he feels very superior. He thinks he's better than everybody else, and he thinks he's going to beat this. Jet says BK is going to love the trial, being in the spotlight and seeing all the photographs and re-victimizing the families. Yeah, we know from watching Ted Bundy that he really enjoyed decided he was going to be his own lawyer. And he was so enamored, reportedly, of looking at the victims' images of what he had done to them, that the jury noticed. It was creepy how into it he all was. And, I think Ann Taylor knows this guy is going to be creepy. That's why she tried to put it out there that he's autistic. And I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying his mom was a special needs teacher. If he was really autistic, why wouldn't she have gotten him diagnosed when he was a kid? Or is this just, a little bit too convenient? But also, just because you're autistic doesn't mean you can't also have some sort of psychopathy or sociopathy. You can have both. You can have dual diagnoses. So, and I just want to be clear that someone who is autistic is no more likely to commit a crime like this than someone who isn't autistic. Space Junkie says, I think Judge Hip Hooray said the jury questionnaire would not be released to the public. Well, it went out. It went out. Let me show you the receipts on that. Let me see. It went out. The jury questionnaire that's what I reported on right out of the gate. Let me grab this. I just want to show you the receipts. Okay. So this is, make sure we're all looking at the same thing. There it is. Okay. So this is local news. This is the subsidiary. You can see the NBC logo, Channel 6, KPVI. So it says this is 6 hours ago, you guys. People are filling out juror questionnaires for the Bryan Kohberger trial. Why would they have jurors filling out questionnaires for the Bryan Kohberger trial if it wasn't going on time? Let's listen in. If I can get it to play.
Judge Stephen Hippler has ordered jurors' questionnaires begin in the Bryan Kohberger trial. The Ada County District Court is summoning hundreds of thousands of people to the courthouse to fill out questionnaires. This will happen in the weeks before voir dire. The questionnaire will then be copied and sent to the defense, prosecution, and judge. Voir dire is expected to start August 4th, followed by opening statements, which are likely to begin on August 11th.
Okay, so I don't think that this news outlet would be reporting that these questions were all sent out if they didn't. We also didn't have some type of inside information, and you guys know that local media is going to be more likely to find out that these questionnaires were sent out as opposed to a bigger news outlet. So let me see. I also want to talk about Ann Taylor talked about overturning this capital case. So let's talk about that too. My source on this is the Idaho Statesman. So will this be overturned if he is convicted? So I've heard mixed things, and I just wanted to clear this up for you guys. So Ann Taylor, was pretty much a shot over the bow in an effort to get capital punishment off the table and the delay. Now, I don't think she's getting a delay, or if she does, it's going to be very short, because I don't think all these questionnaires would have gone out if she was getting some huge delay in the case. I could be wrong. This reporting could be wrong, but I don't think the judge would be sending out all these questionnaires and putting out this expense if he wasn't planning to proceed on time. So she wrote, while prompt administration of justice is important to both the state and Mr. Kohberger, and she leaves out the victims here, because the victims have a right to have things happen in a timely manner also, which is why I think, at the most, maybe if he does grade a delay, it'll be very, very short. The constitutional guarantee of a fair trial outweighs a modest delay. This is what Ann Taylor wrote. And because the majority of cases ending in DP, capital punishment, are later overturned for error, the public interest lies in ensuring a fair trial in the first instance. So is this true? Do most of these cases get overturned? So a seminal report was produced at the law school at Columbia University found that a 68% reversal rate nationally of capital punishment case convictions because of serious error. But the report is decades old. This report is from 2020, you guys. 2020, there it is right there. The study included 4,600 fully reviewed cases across the U.S. between 1973 and 1995. So I think some of these got overturned because of DNA. We didn't have DNA, in the 70s, right? The first time we probably heard of DNA was in the 80s during the O.J. Simpson trial. But most common errors the study found were incompetent defense attorneys, faulty juror instructions, and prosecutorial misconduct, which included incidents of evidence suppression of innocence. And this is James Lieben said in a statement when it was released. So again, this is 25 years old. So this is what Ann Taylor is talking about. Idaho ranked second for how often homicides led to capital punishment, and also landed in the top 10 states for its overall error rate of 82%, according to the study. Reversals entailed direct appeals, state post-conviction proceedings, and federal review. So that was from 25 years ago. Let's look at the newer analysis, because I think Ann Taylor is going to appeal no matter what. There's an automatic appeal in Idaho. So Bryan Kohberger is going to get an appeal if he's convicted and the judge imposes capital punishment. So this is a new analysis, lowers the capital punishment reversal rate. This is the DP Information Center, maintains the largest national death sentence database of 10,000 cases nationally since 1972. About 49% were later reversed. So you can see that statistic dropped from being in the 80-something percent down to less than half. And that's still including going back to 1972. But you can see that, I think DNA really helps. I do. Our data is accurate through January 1st of 2025, shows that nearly half of all capital punishment sentences have been reversed in some manner or another. So it doesn't mean totally reversed, just in some manner or another. Specific to Idaho, 24 of the 55 capital punishment sentences, so about 44%, have been overturned. Just 3 of those convictions have resulted in somebody being done away with. So this is, why Bryan Kohberger feels comfortable to stay where he is and put in for a delay. It helps him. Idaho's last of doing away with somebody was in June of 2012, nearly 13 years ago. They tried to do it by lethal injection last year, but failed to do so when the prison officials were unable to locate a suitable vein for the IV. And since then, Idaho paused all its executions, and it renovates its execution chamber to accommodate a firing squad as a lead method. So what Ann Taylor is asserting, that the legal filing seeking a trial delay, that the majority of capital punishment cases are reversed over an error, that's long been accepted since the Columbia University study was released, but it might no longer be the case. Because remember, the 40-something percent, 49%, includes going back to the 1970s. So he said, I'm confident they were referring to a study that demonstrated that a majority of cases fully reviewed on appeal had been overturned, so that was accurate for that time. Our data includes capital punishment sentences that are still on appeal, so we don't know how many of them will be overturned for legal error. Several variables have contributed to the reduction of convictions being overturned in the U.S. since the study was completed. And for one, the number of capital punishment sought in recent years has dropped dramatically. So 15 states have completely abolished capital punishment since 1972, bringing the total to 23 without DP. And remember, Bryan Kohberger drove across state lines. He was in Washington. He drove across state lines to Idaho to commit this crime. Allegedly, he's innocent until proven guilty, to commit this crime. And he drove himself from a non-capital punishment state across state lines to a capital punishment state. You guys, let that sink in for a second. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Thank you to NJAS for gifting another Reporter Room membership. Wow, you guys, if you got that, please make sure you say thank you to NJAS, and thank you so much, NJAS. We're not done, but I do want to say thank you to our producers. Hold on, my bad. I'm blocking names. Let me do that one more time. I'm sorry. Thank you to our producers, NJAS, Sasha Angel, George Brown Pepper, and Christy Valentine. Thank you to our channel members. So much for all of this. All right, so will this, if he is convicted, this is going to go to appeal. So this won't just all end just because we get a conviction. He will have a automatic appeal in the state of Idaho. And let me pull that up. So let's talk about how this works next. Okay, and I just also want to say thank you so much to, this is the wrong one, my bad. Thank you so much for your super thanks and coffee gratitude. Really, really appreciate you guys. And thank you so much for the gifted channel memberships. If I have left your name off anything, please let me know. I would much rather you let me know and than to not. All right, let's add this in. Okay. So this is how the capital punishment works in Idaho. We've gotten a lot of comments and questions. My source on this is Boise State Public Radio. So this is how the capital punishment works. First, that's the room. If you wanted to see, that's where the lethal injection would happen. That's the table. You can see that they would be strapping the person in, and that an IV would be started. If that's, the method that they use. But they had trouble, getting the IV started. So this is post the Furman era. And Idaho has overseen 3 people being done away with the most recent being Richard Levitt in 2012. And 8 people are currently sitting on death row. Now, state legislatures finalized the firing squad during the 2023 session over concerns over the availability of lethal injection medications, with many questions about the process still to be answered. So, let's go through how this would happen. Step 1, the prosecutor, the defendant is charged, and step 2 would be the trial and sentencing. So that's also called phase 2 in a trial. And phase 3 would be the actual sentencing of the person. And then step 3 is the appeal process. So we're going to talk about that. So the Idaho Supreme Court automatically reviews every capital punishment sentence imposed by trial courts. This is separate from any appeal that might be filed by the defendant. So the Idaho Supreme Court reviews it, and Ann Taylor doesn't have to do anything. I still think she's going to appeal, but she doesn't have to. They will automatically review it. During both the Idaho Supreme Court review and any pending appeal, this sentence that was imposed by the judge, if he is found guilty, would be temporarily suspended. The lengthy appeals process has contributed to the steady increase of the time it takes for a state to carry out a capital punishment after the initial sentence. Now, the judge said he will be doing the sentencing the next day, or right away. So if the jury comes back on a Sunday with a verdict, on Monday, Bryan Kohberger will be sentenced. The Capital Punishment Information Center, I'm watching my words, found that inmates typically spend more than 10 years waiting for their date or for the court to overturn this. And it reports that more than half of all inmates who are sitting on DP row in America have been there for more than 18 years. Step 4, the DP warrant. After all appeals have been exhausted, or if the defendant chooses to drop their objections, the state must request a judge issue this particular warrant for the individual, who must be done away with within 30 days. Upon serving the search warrant, the defendant is immediately transported to the state's maximum security facility near Kuna, if they're not already there, and put into isolated confinement. So during that time, specialized teams within the Idaho Department of Corrections are mobilized to prepare. That step-by-step process and outline of the duties can be found in the IDOC Standard Operating Procedure Manual. I'm not going to go through that. Contrary to policies in other states and pop culture, capital punishment inmates in Idaho are limited in what they can eat for their final meal. So they don't get to just get anything they want. They have to select from standard options available in the prison cafeteria. Step 5, the actual doing away with somebody. Currently, lethal injection is still the primary method that's being used by the state of Idaho. In July of 2026, the firing squad will become the primary method. Governor Brad Little signed the House bill into law in March of 2025, making Idaho the only state to use this as a preferred method. Some states use it as a backup method. Idaho is choosing this as their preferred method. The IDOC is still working on making necessary upgrades to its execution facility. It's also in the process of creating a standard operating procedure for doing away with somebody using this particular method. So if they do the IV, so if somebody is happens before March, let's see, when does this take effect? July of 2026. So if something happens before July of 2026, then they would be brought into the chamber. A medical team begins multiple IVs connecting to the inmate's bloodstream. The primary IV connection is then interrupted. An approved drug or drug cocktail is then given to the inmate via an IV connection as the staff monitors their heart activity. And even if the person passes before receiving the full cocktail, the entire set of chemicals have to be administered. So that's how it happens. And this is the room that it happens in Idaho. So that's kind of gruesome to think about. But, you know, considering what he's charged with, Christians thinks that oppositional defiance disorder is a behavioral condition characterized by persistent pattern of anger, irritability, and defiant behavior, often directed toward authority figures. Kami said, sometimes special ed teachers don't want to admit it could be their own kids. I've seen this firsthand as a retired teacher. Thank you for sharing that. Me, myself, and I says, we have 3 months to go before we all hear the evidence. In my opinion, there is so much evidence. You're right. Katie says, I'm wondering the same. Oppositional defiance disorder is more common than you think. If it's not treated as kid scary, I work with a few of them in my district. Wow. Lady said he thought he was going to get coffee with the police after he got arrested. He's clueless, I think is what you're saying. Hope I said that right, Lane. Liz Susan says she waited tables also through college. Me to save a business. Oh, well, that you waited tables. Wow. And Christian said oppositional defiance disorder is classified as a disruptive behavior disorder that typically emerges in childhood or adolescence. It is characterized by a pattern of angry or irritable mood, argumentative or defiant behavior. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kara said, did anyone see what eating disorder they diagnosed him when? I didn't hear anything about that. I haven't heard anything that was diagnosed. Christian said, common symptoms include angry, irritable mood, frequent temper tantrums, easily annoyed, and often angry or resentful. Argumentative behavior, regularly argues with adults. So I just wonder if there were some signs. And this guy got a free pass. You know, he got the benefit of the doubt, too many times. Thanks for modding today, DM. Katie says, Christian is yes, exactly. It can be scary, violent, and angry. Kaylee's Bluetooth. Are you asking about Kaylee's Bluetooth, Warren? Kat says, I worked at Shoney's in the summer after I graduated high school. I am old. Christian said, nothing wrong with that. It beats the alternative, right? Christian continues refusing to comply with requests and deliberately annoying others, vindictiveness, engaged in spiteful or revengeful behavior, often blaming others for their own mistakes. And Callie said, when talking about prevention, seeing signs and getting the individual help as early as possible is key. And these parents did nothing. Well, not that we know of. I just want to just say that. Not that we know of. Kat thinks he is living for this. Hey, Moonlight. Veronica said his dad turned him in for stealing his sister's phone. Yeah, he did do that. And then they dropped the charges. So they turned him in, but he didn't have to face any actual consequences. And I just wonder if he had to face some type of actual consequences along the way, would we be here? Dab says, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe. It's free. Yeah, please help me out. I can't get to 50,000 subscribers without your help. Let me see. Mimi thinks Ann Taylor leaked info. Prosecution leaking info doesn't. I think it could have been just a disgruntled law enforcement officer too. I don't know. We don't know who leaked it yet. Please watch the words that you guys are using. Please don't use the M word. Use red rum or unalive. Just watch what words you guys are using. Otherwise, yeah, please leave your DNA on the like button. Thank you, Kathy. And I do want to say a big thank you to Marco for the $2 super sticker. You have a request. Go for it. Marco gifted 1 reporter room membership. Wow, that was really nice, Marco. Thank you so much. If you got that reporter room membership, that's one of the nice things about coming up and talking to me in the top chat. If you're watching this, come on up and you can get on your phone and you can, join and be part of the conversation. When we're doing the trial, I don't talk while the court's going on, but I do love to, chat with the top chat during the trial. Long Island Hillbilly, thank you so much for the 1999. Long Island Hillbilly says, if there's ever a capital case not to be overturned, it's this one. Seagulls will stop eating French fries before this case gets overturned. Wow, that's a really powerful statement. So it sounds like you have a lot of confidence in this. And thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker. I will definitely be putting that toward editing equipment. So thank you for that, you guys. And Brother Mike says thank you too. Thank you for modding today. Also, Mike, 6 cents, Amelia, and Jazz, and Christy and Dabs. If you're a mod, come down and drop me a comment. Let me shout you out. If you're modding today, come down and drop me a comment. Terry says, I don't think he had a ED. He was just overweight who lost a bunch of weight and became a bully. Thank you for sharing that. So if you're a mod, come down and say hello. And thank you to Donna for the $4.99 super sticker. That is so nice of you, Donna. Thank you so much. I will be putting that toward editing equipment. And Mimi says, I don't know Yik Yak. Well, I have never heard of it either. So I think, it's just really big on college campuses. So maybe if you were in college. I do want to thank Donna for modding and Christy for modding and Njaz for being our head mod and Brother Mike for being our head mod and Amelia for being our head mod. Thank you, Ileana. Come on down. If you're a mod, come and drop me a comment so I can shout you on. Thank you, Kathy. Virginia says, I think the defense leaked it too. It doesn't help the prosecution, but Ann Taylor can try to use it for another delay. Thank you so much for modding today, Kami. Kami says, hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Well, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going over right now to do a Lily and Jack live stream if you want to follow me over. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. I really appreciate those of you who take time to come by. And please make sure you drop me a comment below. And also subscribe. I can't get to 50,000 subscribers without your help. And I'm really trying hard to get there. See you next time. Bye.